passing arrays to methods will function very similar to other languages. Let's go ahead and create a method that will just print out the numbers in an array. So if I say static void print numbers, and then now notice that up here this is a string array. We do the same thing. Int square brackets to tell it that's an int array, and numbers. Now if you remember from before when I talked about arrays, there's a couple of different ways to iterate through an array, but the easiest way is for each int I in numbers, console.writeLine I. So this will just print out the number one line at a time. So now let's go ahead and create an array of numbers. Int square brackets my nums is equal to, and then I just randomly choose numbers, 42, 15, 75, 234, 64, 92, 1. And now all I do is print numbers, my nums, and so I'm just passing this array there. This is expecting an array of type int. It's going to be known as numbers inside of there. And now we can just do whatever we want with this. So now we'll get each of those numbers printed out one per line. Now, one of the things about this, much like other languages, is arrays are passed by reference versus passed by value. So if you'll remember from the last video, I mentioned that the variables created inside of the method are scoped to that method and they go away once that method exits. Things which are passed by reference are handled differently. It's passing around the memory address, just like in C++ and other languages. So if we were to do something like, say, numbers square brackets 2 is equal to, let's just use nines, 99,999. So that is storing the value into numbers, and it's actually going to replace that 75. So now, and I'm going to go ahead and write this for each down here, for each int I in my nums, console.write, and I'm not going to do a new line, I'm going to do string interpolation, I, oops, curly brace I, space. So it's just going to print it all out in one line with spaces separating it. So the first time that I run this, it's going to print out, let me go ahead and change this also. Curly brace I, put a space there. So it's going to print out all of these numbers with a space, because it's coming from this print numbers method. And then once it exits print numbers, then it's going to print out all the numbers again, but notice that the 75 will be replaced with a 99,999. Oh, might help if I put a new line in there. So console.writeLine. All right, so we're going to print it out. We're going to write out a new line, and then we'll print it out again, just so it looks differently. Notice that these two are exactly the same, except the 75 has been replaced with 99,999. Even though we changed it inside of this method, it persists because arrays are always passed by reference. That's why when we called this again, or when we did the for each loop there, it printed out the value that it had previously changed. So just keep that in mind. Arrays are always passed by reference. When we're talking about arrays, you can pass in multi-dimensional arrays. You just put an extra square brackets there, or you put a comma there, depending upon what your array is. Notice that now this is expecting a multi-dimensional rectangular array, whereas the two square brackets is expecting a multi-dimensional jagged array. But once you pass it in there, inside of here, it'll be known as numbers, and you can do whatever you do with it inside of that particular method. But the key thing with passing arrays is always passed by reference, and if you modify an array inside of a method, then it persists after that method exits.